I'm all mic'd up. Let's see if it works. I think you could hear me. So I'm an engineer by degree, which means I'm an introvert. And I just get all kinds of butterflies when I have to get in front of large groups. And Bernat and I were kind of talking about that earlier. Thank goodness she's an extrovert. But anyway, it was really rough for me to be able to go through school and then trying to explain my ideas as an engineer until I joined this organization, Toastmasters International. How many of you have heard of Toastmasters and know about them? All right, awesome. That's fantastic. I had no idea there was a group out there that could support. So if you know about Toastmasters, then you know there are certain levels that you get to in speaking. And the highest level is a DTM. I'm an ATM Gold, which is right underneath that. A DTM has to have started a chapter. I didn't have a chance to do that, so I actually am an ATM Gold. Anyway, my first job was with this company. By the time I was 28 years old, I was heading up all the North American factories for John Deere on a couple of cost reduction and performance improvement programs. So I was constantly asked to speak in front of large groups, and oh my goodness, I was a wreck. I was really having trouble with speaking in front of groups. So I actually joined the John Deere Toastmaster Club. Eventually I became president. Eventually I became the area governor, which means I had about 6 clubs. And John Deere eventually asked me to present presentation skills, group problem solving, facilitation skills for their organization. So I did that for about 8 years. So let me begin by talking about ways that you can make your butterflies fly into formation. I still get nervous when I have to stand in front of a group and talk. But having some good tips on presentation skills can teach your butterflies of nerves to fly in formation. And that's really, I just want to touch upon a few of them today and talk about maybe some of the examples and things that I've done, as well as facilitating some groups. But if you get some good tips and you understand presentation skills and what it takes to deliver a message, it helps you look and sound more relaxed and in control. It helps you feel less nervous, and it maximizes your thought process as you're up there. Now, one of the things I learned in Toastmasters by a study that was done by Dr. Albert Morabian is that 55% of what an audience takes away is what they see. 38% is the voice. 7% is the content. So I always said, if I look good and I sound good, chances are you're not going to remember anything I'm telling you. So 55% is visual. Let's focus on that for a second. Ready, aim, fire. And when I'm going to explain that a little more here in the next few slides, but it's really how you present your material to an organization or to a group. So I'm going to hold on that one for a minute, but I'll explain it. The posture. How is the person standing? And are they moving back and forth? Are they leaning on the podium? Are they standing upright? Are they facing the audience directly? These are all things that are very important that the audience watches for. And please don't judge me today. Hands. Hands are very important too in what an audience sees. Are you doing the fig leaf? Do you have your hands behind your back? You know, guys in particular like to put their hands in their pockets when they're up there talking. So I learned early on, if you got change in your pocket, because naturally I'm going to go to that sometimes, take the change out and set it aside so you're not jingling things in your pocket. You've seen that before. The eyes are so very important. Even with a sty in my eye, hopefully that doesn't impact the way I look and connect with the audience. So I want to explain that a little bit more, but eyes are so important. So with eye contact, some people have said, oh, you're just going to scan the audience and just keep moving. No, that's not right. What you really need to do is look at the audience in an extended control fashion, look at someone, make your point, and then move to the next person. Maintaining extended eye control is so very important as you give a presentation. So how many of you, when you left church, thought, man, that minister was talking directly to me? Anybody think that before? Oh, they're looking right at me. That's because they are masters at extended eye control. So using eye control can help you deliver your message better. Now, in large groups, I've found when I'm talking to groups of 600 or more, I have to scan on the room. So I look to the left side of the room, I'll look to the middle of the room, then I'll look to the right of the room. And trying to maintain that extended eye control draws the audience in. Vocal, I've said, 38%. I mean, from this point forward, as people stand up and introduce themselves, you're going to be listening for how does their voice sound, because that's a big part of a presentation. The volume itself, one of my tips that I want to give to you, that if you're talking to the person furthest from you in the room, Will Hankey, if Will Hankey can hear me, then the whole room can hear me. So when you're up there with your volume, make sure you're talking to the person furthest from you in the room so that everybody else can hear what you're having to say. Inflection, so important, because if you are talking in a monotone fashion and you just keep the same tone as you're delivering your speech, people are going to be falling asleep. And there are some in our audience right now that are. Okay, there goes the smile. I can tell he's awake. All right. So making sure you've got inflection in your voice to make your point. And it's okay to have a pregnant pause. To stop after you've made a point. Look at the person. Look at the group. Make sure they're with you. That's how you can draw in the audience. The pace is so very important. Are you too fast or you're too slow? So with pace, if you're excited about something and you're very passionate about it, your pace picks up. You don't want to be way too slow with your pace because people will fall asleep and they won't follow you. So make sure your pace is right on target with what kind of message you're trying to present. Your non-words, oh my, I was horrible with ums and ahs because people love filler words. And if you can get away from them, your presentation will be far better. So we used to, in Toastmasters, have to pay $1 for every time we said an aw or an in a speech. And that's a great way to break you. So, just work on it. It comes natural because, again, people love those filler words. So just try to stay away from ahs and ums and practice not saying that. Voice, 38%. So boom it out. Inflection, pace, excitement. Stay away from ums and ahs. One of the points here is when you have nervous energy, you have to find a way to drive it in a positive manner and take control of it. Because you'll see some people moving around a lot and turning and shaking and moving because they've got nervous energy. The worst case I saw was a friend of mine getting married, and as he was standing up there during the wedding ceremony, he was doing this with his legs. He had no idea. He had no idea. I thought, oh my God, that takes away from the whole service here. He's just up there doing this like he's running in place. He had no idea. That's nervous energy. So focus on your stance. Are you standing properly? Are you turning properly? People are going to be focusing in on that. Your gestures. Are you gesturing properly with your hands and making your point as you get across? What about your volume and what about your pace? I will just tell you, those two need to be in harmony when you're giving a good presentation. So those are just a few tips about presentations. I do want to come back to clearing the visual. So clearing the visual, on a busy slide like this, the audience gets sucked into reading everything that's on there and what is it? The presenter gets sucked in with trying to explain it all. So what I want you to take away today is clear the visual, ready, aim, fire. Clear the visual is telling people what they're looking at. This is the third quarter performance results. Ready is point to something specific on that slide that you want to get across to. And aim is look at the audience and then deliver your message. So here we go. Third quarter performance is what we're looking at. June was not a very good month, but we've improved for July and August. Ready, aim, fire. Because what happens is you'll turn and you'll look at it, you'll try to explain it. Just point to something, look at the audience, tell them what it is. And you will greatly improve a busy slide like that. Now I'm sorry, this man is not here today, but I want to bring up Brian Rogers. in his presentations, because here's clearing the visual Brian Rogers' way. He's got stick people. He has stick people. You don't know what he's saying about the slide, but you love his stick people. It's very simple. And I'm just so disappointed that he's not here. So, hey, Brian, shout out to you. That's his ready, aim, fire. All right, let's talk about facilitation. So facilitation, I'm going to have to pick it up now. Facilitating groups. One of the important things that a facilitator needs to do is make sure they plan properly. So having the agenda set up, making sure that you have rules, start on time, end on time for facilitating. Participation, you want to draw people out. As far as unlocking the ideas, you want to get the people that are in the group talking any way you can. And problem solving. You need to have some idea of how you're going to solve problems within the group, whether it be an Ishikawa fishbone diagram to drive down to the main factor affecting something, or decision matrix, or brainstorming, multi-voting. These are good skills and tools and techniques for a facilitator to understand. And you always want to try and reach consensus. So one of my tips is, when someone is argumentative with me, I'll say, can you live with this solution? Can you live with it? And they will usually say yes. So that's a great way to get around someone that's being obstinate. Behavior. All groups have 3 behaviors: task, relations, self-oriented. In the board meeting today, we realized some of those today. Task-oriented is getting the job done. It's summarizing, it's moving forward, it's pushing on, getting through the details. And relations-oriented is, how is the group feeling? Are we recognizing them, or are we pulling them in? Self-oriented is bad. That means somebody is thinking about themselves instead of the group. So you want to stay away from self-oriented, and as a facilitator, you want to try and stop that as soon as you can. So task and relations is good, self-oriented, not so good. Questioning techniques are so important in facilitating a group, and drawing out information, drawing out independent thoughts, broadening the discussion, and making the people feel like they're valued. So it's all in the use of questions that a facilitator has, the way they talk to a group and the way they bring out information, whether you're having your own staff meeting or whether you're having a board meeting. Guidelines, short questions, making sure you get to the point quickly. And have you heard some of these reporters ask a question and there's 3 questions in it? Don't do that. That's what I mean by short questions. Just stick with one point. Don't have multiple questions within a question. Logical sequence. Keep it on pace with where you're at. Process questions are who, what, when, where. Content questions are the details. And then you can use open-ended and closed to make your points and bring out more information. So it's like digging that ditch wider and then digging it deep to a point. And so open and closed-ended questions for a facilitator are really great ways to move forward. And asking questions beyond the obvious. Sometimes asking a question that everybody laughs at, you interject humor into it, and it changes their perspective on their thinking about a particular subject. Listening is also super important for a facilitator. Looking for the main idea and taking notes. Bill Pernat does a great job of that. So he'll get to the flip chart, he'll write down what he's hearing, but most importantly, you turn back to the person that said something and said, can I say it this way? You get permission to put up on the flip chart what they've said, or you try and summarize what they've said to take it up there. And look for underlying meanings. As a facilitator, you're looking for that underlying stuff when somebody makes a comment, because they're sometimes passive-aggressive in the way they present information. Being open to ideas and making sure others are as well, and pay attention. Even if the subject is boring, a good facilitator needs to pay attention. Anybody been to my BDT group? You see that in motion, the way I run those meetings. I start on time, I end on time, I cut people off. I am the master at facilitating that group to move it forward. And that's what I mean by good facilitation skills. So with that, I will end, because Mark is going to pull the plug on me if I don't. I will say, thank you. At the end of your table, there's a handout, and it's dealing with difficult behaviors. So there's about 3 pages of tips and tricks that were too much to try and build into a 15-minute presentation, but it's gold stuff. So take a look at that, take it home with you, and hopefully that'll help you in facilitating with groups of people in the future.
Do you take questions, Jim?
I am open for questions if I have time. Yes, Bill. Sorry.
Jim, just a question on the handout here. The last page is stages of group performance, and it's got a column down the left-hand side.
Forming,
and then,
storming, and norming, is that?
Yes. Could you just briefly walk through what that is?
Well, let me explain it this way. Here's a bunch of people showing up on a field on a Saturday, your friends. So they bring a football, they bring a baseball, they bring a basketball, and they're trying to figure out what game they're going to play. So that's storming within a group. They are trying to figure out, so we've got, now let's play football because this, we got, so, you know, you've got this conflict that goes on as you try to identify how the group's going to move forward on a particular subject. Norming is when they start to come to conclusion as to, okay, yeah, let's play basketball. Now everybody, if we're going to choose that one, everybody knows the rules of how we're going to play. That's norming within the group. And the performing is actually playing the game, so to speak. So if that helps you think about how it relates within a group, when you get a group together, they're all trying to figure out, oh, okay, what's the objective? What are we trying to do? Then they decide, and then they get down to business. Now, it's going to fluctuate all the time. When you bring in a new person, you're back to storming. And then you norm and back to performing. So it's constantly in and out with those stages within the group. Hopefully that explains it.
Jim, you're a very results-oriented guy, probably one of the most results-oriented people that I know. And so do you have any tips for the group about any little techniques that you use that cause you to be able to get such high results year in and year out?
I think for me, it's always beginning with the end in mind and having a vision of where you want to go. So here's what I want to get out of this meeting. Now how do I make that happen? Here's what I want to get in terms of results for my business at the end of the year. Work backwards. How do I make that happen? So my tip in answering your question, begin with the end in mind, work backwards from there. Yeah.
Jim, can you quickly go back to the slide that showed those bar charts and all those bullets, the ones that had all that information? Can you click back to that real quickly?
The busy slide?
Yeah, the busy slide.
Oh, okay.
So while you're doing that, I'll just set it up. So I'm kind of a fanatic about slide construction, and there are a couple of things that I've found that really are helpful. First of all, the rule of 5, which is have no more than 5 bullets on a slide and no more than 5 words per bullet. Believe me, it's much easier to process that way. Secondly, when you're going through information, don't throw it up there all the time because people are trying to process everything they're seeing. If you're going to talk about the bar chart, have that come up first. Do a build, then bring up the next bullet and the next bullet so you don't swarm people with a bunch of visual information that they can't process very quickly.
Yeah, thanks, Les. I thought that was a question for me. Okay. All right. Great stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. Any other questions?
Bill, you got another one? Oh, you're good?
You're right on.
Okay.
I didn't mean to. I mean, you. Yeah, it was perfect.
Right.
He's absolutely right. And Cynthia and I picked this one out because we wanted it to be busy. That was the whole point behind it. Yeah, Bill.
I was just going to point out that there's something about that on the difficult behavior.
You mean redirect? That's it? Yes. Les is not on that, hopefully. You won't find him on that paper. Oh, my.
Just a quick question.
Yeah, James.
And I know you're an expert. So could you tell me what recommendations do you have in regards to time management? You know, each of us have 24 hours a day.
Oh, my.
And each of us have certain specific things that we do.
I could say I'll develop a speech on that, but let me answer that by saying one of the best books I ever read, to answer your question, was The 1 Minute Manager. So the 1 Minute Manager taught me how to look at things I need to deal with and things I don't, and push aside the things I don't need to deal with and focus on the ones I do, if that makes any sense. At Reuters, I would get 200 emails a day, and so I couldn't keep up with it all. Plus, I had a staff of 300 people working for me. So I had to focus on what can I address from these emails and delete or move on. So the 1 Minute Manager, Ken Blanchard, that'd be a great book for you to read. Okay, I think I'm out of time. Mark's pulling the plug on me.
Jim, will you be around after the meeting to answer any questions that we
I do
didn't get
have
to?
a lunch meeting, but I'm happy to stay as long as I can.
Okay, awesome. Good job.
All right, thank you all for listening.